have Micheal Persimmon. So Micheal is a computer doctor, a retired monk, and a meditation teacher. And the talk he's presenting today is how to rescue your old computer using Linux and change the world more powerfully than Steve Jobs ever did. So I'm curious as to what Michael's going to teach us. Come on stage.
So I want to give a little bit of backstory. I promise I'm going to get to this point. I'm going to spend 1 minute on this. So this is the first computer I ever used back in 1980, and it was soon made obsolete right after it came out, and Bill Cosby didn't have anything to do with it. But it didn't last very long, and it just wound up being in a closet and collecting dust. Oh, okay, let me get this. Come on. There we go. Now, this computer is the first computer I ever bought. I paid $1,700 for this Apple II GS, bought it from Apple Computer. And soon after I bought it, same thing happened. It became obsolete. Apple decided they didn't want to support this anymore. So it wound up frustrating me because I was actually building a business around this particular computer. And when they decided not to support it, everything tanked. So 1995 rolls around, and this time I get excited because Microsoft comes out with Windows 95. They say, look, you buy Microsoft Windows 95, you can put out any computer you want, and you won't have to suffer from a computer manufacturer saying, look, we don't support that computer anymore. And I thought, that's fantastic. I have no power, no one's gonna have any power over me. But then Microsoft, I realized, wanted to lock me into their ecosystem. They wanted me to use only Microsoft products, and they made it difficult for me to use anything else. And I didn't like their business practices. I didn't think they were integrous, and I didn't like the pace at which they developed their software. I thought they were just poking along. And so because I loved computers, I loved it from a very early age, I thought there had to be a better way. I was getting depressed about the whole situation. And so we have this situation. So what I do is I'm a computer doctor, like I mentioned. I take the stress out of people's lives. And one of the stresses I hear is people say to me, I have this computer, but it's no longer supported anymore, and now I have to get another computer. And obviously it costs a lot of money, or they'll say, like, I need to buy new software because they're not supporting the software that I paid for, and it's gonna cost some money, and this is a stress on my life, so what do? And there is another way. What's happened is that these computers, someone's deciding that these computers are going to be obsolete. And yet we both know that these computers work, right? But someone said, no, this is going to be obsolete. And there's this global movement that's happening that you won't know about unless someone tells you, like a friend tells you. You're not going to hear it on TV. It's not going to jump out at you off the internet. You have to be kind of in the know, but it's really, I mean, no joke, it's a huge thing that's happening, and it's changing the world. And this thing, it's called open source. Maybe you've heard of it. And what it does is it fixes the problem of obsolescence. Planned obsolescence, accidental obsolescence, careless obsolescence. You know, a company goes out of business, and then the thing that you invested your money into, it's like, well, it's not being supported anymore, so what do? Open source is huge. It's absolutely huge, and you might have already heard about it. You may have heard of LibreOffice or Mozilla Firefox. These are kind of like the two breakout open source projects that have kind of just crested in the past decade. Well, Mozilla Firefox, it's an open source web browser. It completely changed the whole internet. And then LibreOffice completely changed the whole office productivity scene. It's like Microsoft no longer had the lock on the market. And what open source means is basically no one can own these pieces of software. It's in the community's hands. No one can ever take that away. And it's completely different. And these pieces of software, by the way, are just given away for free. Absolutely free, just for the asking. And that's unprecedented. Someone's giving you this tremendous piece of engineering for nothing. And yet, these two examples are just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. For example, it's bouncing. If you didn't want to pay for Photoshop, and yet you wanted to do some Photoshop type work, you can go and download this program. It's called Krita, and oh my God, it is the most incredible piece of software. Digital artists rave about this. It is so powerful what this thing can do. And it's free. It's open source. And this is LibreOffice. This is the successor to OpenOffice. This is a fantastic piece of engineering. This completely replaces Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It is brilliant what this is, and it just improves year over year. It's incredible. And if you need something like for Outlook, Microsoft Outlook, there's Kmail. Kmail is fantastic. And if you need to do illustrative work, there's something called Inkscape. Inkscape, again, no cost, supported by the community. No one company can kill it. It's out there for the taking. This is called Darktable. If you're you're a photographer, you shoot in RAW, and you need to be able to edit those, and you don't want to pay Adobe for their, I guess it's called Lightroom. There's this, it's called Darktable. It's fantastic. And if you need double entry accounting software, this is called Newcash. Again, excellent, and it doesn't lock your data in. Scribus for desktop publishing, so you don't have to use InDesign. Hexie replaces Microsoft Access. Excellent piece of software. You want to do video editing, KDE NLive, 3D modeling, Blender. I mean, this is the animations this has done is just incredible. Audacity for doing sound editing. If you want to do DJing, this thing called Mix, it's great. If you need a digital audio workstation called Ardor, again, all these are open source. And so how is it possible that this bounty of freely available software is just given to us? It's just given. There's no hooks. Well, it's based on the same principles that we were taught when we were a kid. It's like, here, share your toys. Just share. And by sharing, it just creates this immediate community of inclusion, of gratitude. When you receive these things, it just instantly creates this feeling of gratitude. And then that creates this feeling of appreciation. And then there's this love that just naturally develops. It's a gratitude, appreciation, love. It just feeds back into this whole open source system. And so that's what this open source system is built on. It's built on these upward spiraling waves of emotion that are so powerful. And yes, love is actually a part of it. So you feel so grateful and so appreciative. You love the open source movement. And so is this a threat? Oh, it's absolutely a threat. Apple, Adobe, Microsoft, these big companies that their balance sheet hangs in balance over because of they have to have a reason to sell you these, like Photoshop. These other companies are giving it away. Well, is it a threat? Absolutely. They don't want you to know about this. That's why you'll never hear about it. Someone has to tell you. Said, hey, check it out. And my favorite example of this is I have a friend. He's a forestry scientist. And he needs a special piece of software to be able to submit data to the government. And it's called ArcGIS. And he has to pay $5,000 to $12,000 depending on the license. He's just a scientist. He's just this nerd. He can't afford this. So what does he do? He goes to the open source community and says, hey, is there an alternative out there? And actually there is. It's called QGIS, and we're looking at it right here. This is a brilliant piece of software. I mean, it allows him to get his work done, and it costs him zero. And the amount of appreciation, gratitude, love he has for the open source movement is immense. He wanted me to tell you this, how awesome this software is. So coming back to that, like, where do we get these prices? Like, how do you come up with a price of like $12,000 for a piece of software? You know, well, is it like, let's just take a sidestep here. Is making a piece of software like building a chair or a table? No, building a chair or table, it requires effort. Someone has to bring you the materials. You have to mill the materials. You have to assemble it. You have to stain it. You have to pack it up, ship it out. It requires effort for every single piece that goes out. Software is not that way. Software is, all the effort is up front for the first copy that needs to be produced. You have to pay all the engineers and artists and what have you, only for one piece of software. Then after that one piece of software, the cost to make that second one is zero. Next one is zero, third is zero, and the millionth copy is zero. And even if you sold 1 million copies, all the engineers have already been paid a long time ago. So where do they get the price for this other software? They just pull it out of their ass. Honestly, they pull it out of their ass. It's just, they make it out of thin air. $12,000, well, that's what the market will bear. And so copying is absolutely effortless. Absolutely effortless. It's the easiest thing to do. In fact, you actually have to work harder to prevent copying from happening. Copying just, it's effortless. And then the open source movement, you're encouraged to copy. You're encouraged to share. No one's saying stop. No, only give it to 2 of your friends. No, they say give it to as many people as possible. Why? Because we want to create a community. And the larger the community that we can create, the more people are going to come in, the more excitement's going to build, the more momentum's going to happen. But then people ask, like, well, how do these people pay their bills? I mean, that's the next obvious question, right? But honestly, they can't do it the same way that everything's done before, where you have to pay per piece of software. What they do, they've come up with very ingenious out-of-the-box solutions, and I'm not going to go into now, but trust me, they found ways to make it work and make it sustainable. And there's not only open source, but there's it's inspiring these other open movements. There's something called open source hardware, where an engineer says, okay, the blueprints for this thing, like, I want to give it back to the community. And so it's now back in the community's hands. No one can kill this, whatever he's designed or she's designed. And there's Creative Commons. Everyone needs to know about Creative Commons. Say you make a song, you take a photo, or you write a book, and you want this to go out into the community. You don't want it just to stop at you, but you want it to be able to share. Well, if you say, well, this thing that I created is under the Creative Commons license, then it's legally, it can't die. No one can actually take that out of the community. And then you have something called the Wiki House. It's under the Creative Commons. Brilliant stuff. They've made plans to build houses, and it's now freely available. You don't have to pay these money for a house. So now let's coming back to like the main topic of this, okay? Make this really practical for you. So does anyone have like an old computer that you just shoved in a closet? Yeah, you're going, yeah. I think we all do. We all know someone. We have like a old laptop. It's collecting dust because someone has told us that computer is no longer supported. It's obsolete. And I bet you anything, it's some American company. Well, we can actually take that out of the closet, and we can transform that computer. I guarantee you it. I've done it so many times. I love to do this. What you can do is you can put an open source operating system on it that's not Apple, it's not Microsoft, it's something else. It's this third thing that no one has control over. And then we can resurrect this computer and bring it fully up to date for the cost of $0. Because again, it's open source. And again, this is like, it kind of messes with the head. It's like, how can that be? But honestly, it works, it happens. And this thing, it's called Linux. You may have heard of it. And it's incredible. And that's the mascot, the little penguin dude. And unlike the Apple, Microsoft duopoly, where you only have these two choices to choose from, in the Linux world, you have such freedom. You can do whatever you want. You could take Linux, you can bundle it up, you can make it exactly how you want it to be. You could sell it, you could give it away to your friends. Like, no one's stopping you. You don't need permission to actually do this. There's no gatekeeper. And this is incredible. This has changed the world. And so if you were to do that, you've it would unobsolete your computer. And this is what I've done. So this laptop is 11 years old. It's from 2005. It's an old Dell laptop that one of my clients didn't want. I said, hey, give it to me. Let me see if I can put Linux on it. It's running great. It's browsing the web, fully up-to-date software. There's not one thing it can't do. And it's using the latest software. It's brilliant. And here's another one, this little netbook that people used to write, they bought and kind of like stuffed in the closet I found, but runs Linux great, latest software. It's not obsolete anymore. And here, this friend of mine, she saw me do it. She saw me put Linux on laptop. She said, I can do that. She did this herself. This is her photo. And she's running this iTunes equivalent. And with Linux, you can customize it however you want. You can make it like down to the T. There's no one saying you can't do this, you can't do that. You can customize every last detail. It's fantastic. You can make a computer for kids, you can make it for your parents, you can make it for students, you can make it for surfing the web, you can do whatever you want. And it has all these benefits of resurrecting your computer, because now you have a computer that has all these benefits. I just typed these off the top of my head. My favorite one of all of these is that you probably haven't really used a computer in a long time that didn't have a profit agenda behind it. You didn't have something that trying to like get its fingers into your wallet, asking for an upgrade or trying to scare you into upgrading your antivirus but when you use a computer operating system that has no agenda behind it and it just wants to give to you, oh my gosh, it's like this. It feels like a breath of fresh air. It just feels so clean and simple. Come back. Go forward. Okay, go back. Go forward. Okay. All right. Well, there's this guy. Okay. All right. There's a gentleman there. Okay. The guy is 63 years old. There he is. He never used a computer in his life. He always had his secretaries who could do whatever he needed. And so his family finally said, look, we want you to use computers. We want to be able to email you. We want to be able to Skype you. And they hired me to teach him. So what I did is I got a modest computer. I put Linux on it, and I taught him how to use a computer. He'd never used a computer before in his life. He picked it up like that because it's so clean and easy to understand. It's just so straightforward. I didn't have to scare him about viruses. You don't have that issue. Everything just made sense, and that's how a computer should be. And now he's on fire. This guy, he has a new job. He's a building manager, manages the third largest residential building in Vancouver. And he does it with this Linux laptop. And the guy is just unstoppable. This is my buddy, Alberto. He runs his business. He's a salsa dance teacher. And he runs everything on Linux. And right here, he's using this piece of software to queue up his playlists. And he used Inkscape to create his banners for his classes. And he's done this all himself. And this is my mom. My mom's desktop. She's running Linux. I got tired of devirusing her laptop, and I said, look, Mom, it could take me a long time to put Windows back on, but it's very easy for me to put Linux on it, and you'd have a fully up-to-date computer. She loves it, absolutely loves it. She's doing animation. She's surfing the net. She's way up to date. I don't have to worry about anything. She just gets along great with it. So I need to wrap it up. People say, okay, Linux is $0. Is it good? Yeah, it's really good. Governments use it. Education institutions use it. Businesses use it. I use it. My friends use it. Is it compatible? Absolutely, it's compatible. It's pretty much a solved deal. It does everything I need to do. My friends do. What about the odd Windows program? Can it run some Windows programs? Yeah, there's two ways to do that. I'm not going to go into details, but yeah, you can run odd Windows program. What happens if I don't want to install Linux on my laptop? Can I just buy a computer with Linux on it? Yeah, you can go to these these companies. But the one down in the lower right-hand corner, Free Geek Vancouver, you should all know about this organization, because what they do, they're an ethical recycler. They take all the old computers that come in, and then they break them down, they build them back up, they test them, and they put Linux on them, and you can get a computer for really low price from them. They're wonderful. So what about support? Well, you go to meetup.com, you type in Linux, and there's this meetup group here. We'll bend over backwards to help you out. Absolutely bend over backwards. And the reason why we do this is because, again, open source is based on the attitudes of appreciation, gratitude, and love. We've gained so much from the open source movement. It's given so much to us that we want to give back. And so I'm almost done. What the open source community does is it creates this community of inclusion, of a sense of ours, of a shared mission. And it's also magical because some person down in Brazil, they can say, oh, I want to add to this open source project. They do that, and then everyone else in the world gets that addition, just like that. Because copying is effortless. So how can you be more empowering than Steve Jobs? I only have one more slide after this. The reason why is because you can take any old computer that you have lying around collecting dust, you can put Linux on it, and you can give life to that computer, and you can take away the stress from someone's life by them using that computer. That computer no longer is going to, excuse me, I lost my train of thought. But when that stress is out of your mind and that computer's doing exactly what you want to do, it's absolutely wonderful. And you're also giving another person gratitude, appreciation, and love back into the open source movement. And Steve Jobs, he can only empower you if you continue to pay him every so many years. But in the open source movement only asks that you share, because the open source movement is based on appreciation, gratitude, and love.